Welcome to Debt Matters. Um, what if I told you that your customers are actually begging to stop talking to your human employees?
Right. Especially when it comes to the money they owe you.
Exactly. Because usually we equate, premium customer service with a human voice.
Yeah.
But when a business is chasing an overdue account, that human touch might actually be the very thing destroying your cash flow.
Which is, frankly, totally backwards to how most of us are trained to think about business.
It really is. Today, we are examining new data on how UK businesses are applying artificial intelligence to payments and collections, and, well, how they stack up against their European counterparts.
And for anyone listening out there, whether you're a finance leader, maybe you work in arrears management, or you're just looking to improve your overall business cash flow, understanding this transition is absolutely critical
Yeah.
because we are looking at a stark division here. You've got companies treating arrears as a basic administrative chore on one side, and companies treating it as a core margin issue on the other.
And we are putting aside the futuristic hype today.
Right, no sci-fi stuff.
Exactly. We are focusing purely on the practical, everyday business realities happening in accounts receivable departments right now.
Yeah.
So, let's look at exactly where the UK stands in the current landscape.
Let's do it.
Right now, 61% of UK businesses use artificial intelligence in their payment processes.
Which, sounds like a pretty solid majority.
It does. It sounds great.
Yeah.
But they are actually lagging behind the European average, which sits at 66%.
And the trajectory is what really stands out in those numbers. That gap is actually widening.
Wait, it's getting bigger.
Yeah, it is. If we look back at the figures for 2025, the UK was at 58% compared to Europe's 59%. So adoption is growing everywhere, but the UK is accelerating at a much slower pace than its neighbors.
Which naturally leads to asking why. And the numbers give us a really clear breakdown of the UK mindset right now.
Right.
So 28% of businesses are currently using these tools, and they plan to increase their usage. Then you have 32% who are, just waiting to see results first before they make any changes.
Fence sitters.
Exactly. And another 31% say they plan to use it but just haven't actually implemented it yet.
Right.
And then there's a final 9% who have zero plans to invest whatsoever.
So you essentially have a quarter of the market charging ahead and a massive chunk just sitting on the fence.
Yeah.
And the primary barriers keeping them on that fence are entirely practical. I mean, 55% of UK businesses report that they simply lack the internal skills to get real value from this technology.
Wow, over half.
Yeah. And on top of that, only 35% feel confident that they understand the incoming European AI legislation.
Well, let's unpack those barriers because lacking internal skills sounds a bit vague to me.
It does, yeah.
When you talk about these finance and arrears departments, are they just sitting around wishing they had like machine learning PhDs on staff? Because that seems like a totally unreasonable expectation for a standard accounts receivable team.
Oh, absolutely. But they don't need machine learning engineers. The skills gap is much more operational than that.
Okay, what do you mean by operational?
Well, it's about data mapping and system integration. Many businesses are running legacy enterprise resource planning software systems that were probably installed a decade ago.
Right. The old clunky databases.
Exactly. To get value from an automated payment tool, you need staff who actually understand how to connect that shiny new software to the old database securely.
Ah, I see.
You need people who can design the actual workflows. Like if the automated system flags a late payment, what happens next?
Someone has to actually tell it what to do.
Yes, someone has to map out that logic. Without team members who understand that kind of data plumbing and workflow architecture, the software just sits there doing nothing.
That makes the hesitation a lot more understandable. And then there is that legislative fear you mentioned.
Right, the compliance side.
Yeah. If only 35% feel confident about European AI legislation, that means a massive 65% are effectively in the dark.
And the regulatory landscape is genuinely complex, particularly concerning the European AI Act.
Because it categorizes things by risk. Right?
Exactly. It categorizes automated systems by risk level. So in the financial sector, if a tool is making automated decisions about creditworthiness or, say, profiling a customer's ability to pay it, can very quickly cross into highly regulated territory.
And finance directors aren't exactly known for being risk takers.
Not at all. They are incredibly risk averse.
Yeah.
If they cannot get absolute clarity from their legal teams on whether a new automated collections tool violates, like cross-border data rules or profiling restrictions, their default move is to just freeze.
I want to focus on that 32% of businesses for a second, the ones adopting a wait-and-see
Yeah, it's the
approach.
ones holding out.
Honestly, given the technical headaches and the legal ambiguity you just described, I sort of get it.
It's a natural reaction.
It feels a lot like letting your neighbor test drive a brand new model of a car before you buy it yourself. You know, you get to watch them figure out the quirks, see if the engine holds up, and avoid all the initial risk.
It feels like the responsible, safe choice.
But the trade-off is that while you are just waiting and watching from your driveway, they're already miles down the road. It basically guarantees you will be late to the destination.
Yes.
Which brings me to a pushback on this perceived safety. Because only 48% of UK businesses actually believe they will fall behind if they fail to implement these tools.
That number is wild to me.
Right. Are companies severely underestimating the financial penalty of playing it this safe?
I really believe they are fundamentally miscalculating the cost of inaction.
How so?
Well, while they are sitting there waiting for regulatory clarity or waiting for the technology to become totally plug and play, their competitors are not just automating basic tasks. They're resolving overdue accounts days or even weeks faster.
Because they have capital flowing back into their business sooner.
Precisely. Think about the math. If your competitor collects an overdue invoice in 7 days using an automated workflow, and you collect yours in 30 days using like manual phone calls and letters,
Right.
that competitor has 23 extra days to reinvest that capital.
Wow, yeah.
They can buy inventory, they can hire new staff, they can launch marketing campaigns. Over a full fiscal year, that velocity of cash creates a compounded financial advantage that a manual accounts receivable department simply cannot catch up with.
So if 32% of companies are hiding behind this shield of playing it safe, what exactly are they missing out on? Let's examine the tangible results those early adopters are actually seeing.
The real-world margins.
Exactly. We are moving beyond the theoretical here. When you connect the dots, automation is actively supporting the entire payment journey. So invoice generation, handling account queries, and managing disputes.
Yeah, Gavin Flynn, the UK managing director at Intrum, notes that these tools specifically reduce delays and improve predictability.
Predictability is huge.
It's everything. When a business is struggling with late payments, predictability is the very first thing that vanishes. You don't know when the cash is arriving, so you cannot plan your own expenditures. Restoring that predictability is a massive operational advantage.
And the financial numbers attached to this are just staggering. Firms utilizing these tools and payments are saving £6.6 billion a year in labor costs.
Billion, with a B.
With a B. That equates to roughly a fifth of the total cost of chasing late and non-payments. But I have to pause here.
Okay, what's the catch?
When I hear about billions saved in labor costs and a 20% reduction in overhead, my immediate assumption is that companies are just firing their collection staff and replacing them with a blunt instrument. Right, the robo-debt collector fear. Exactly. I picture a relentless script just firing off thousands of demanding emails at 3 in the morning. It sounds like a fast track to ruining client relationships just to save a few pounds on payroll.
And that is the exact misconception holding so many finance leaders back. They assume automation equals aggression.
It's hard not to.
It is, but the mechanics of how this actually works are far more nuanced. It is not a robotic enforcer. It functions much more like a predictive radar.
Predictive radar.
Yeah. Instead of replacing the human with a louder, faster spam machine, the technology is identifying invoices that are likely to go overdue before the due date even arrives.
Okay, but how does it actually do that? Because predicting a late payment sounds a bit like a magic trick. If an invoice isn't due until Friday, how does the system know on Tuesday that it's going to be a problem?
It all comes down to telemetry data and behavioral patterns.
Okay.
See, a traditional human collections agent only looks at a spreadsheet that says an invoice is 30 days past due. They are entirely reactive.
Right, they only act after the fact.
Exactly. But an automated system monitors micro-interactions. For instance, let's say a specific client historically opens your invoice email within, say, 2 hours of receiving it.
Sure.
And then they typically log into the payment portal by day 14.
Okay, so there is an established baseline of normal behavior for that client.
Yes. Now imagine this month, that same client takes 5 days just to open the email.
Oh, I see.
And when they finally log into the payment portal, they spend 10 minutes clicking around the FAQ section about dispute resolution or payment terms, but they don't actually initiate a transfer.
A human employee processing thousands of accounts would never notice those digital micro delays.
Never. But the automated system catches that deviation instantly and flags the account as a high risk for default.
That changes the math completely. You aren't just reacting faster, you are entirely avoiding the traditional collection cycle.
Exactly. It allows a business to adjust the timing and the tone of their outreach. If the system flags that behavioral change on Tuesday, you don't wait for Friday's red line to pass.
What do you do instead?
You trigger a gentle supportive workflow. Maybe you send an automated email offering a tailored payment plan, or you have an account manager reach out to see if there is an issue with the deliverables.
You are intervening before the account goes into formal arrears.
Right. When you realize that you are saving 20% on the cost of chasing overdue accounts while simultaneously catching issues before they escalate, it transforms this adoption from a simple IT upgrade into a critical matter of business survival. You protect your margins while actively improving the customer experience.
Which brings up an entirely different dynamic. If this technology changes the timing and the tone of collections, we have to explore how the actual customers react to being approached by a machine.
This is my favorite part of the data.
It's wild, because this is where we see a massive, almost counterintuitive disconnect. There's a huge gap between corporate assumptions and consumer reality regarding automated systems.
Tell them the stat.
Only 20% of firms believe that customers are more honest with AI chatbots.
Which means the vast majority of businesses assume that consumers absolutely want to talk to a human being when they are dealing with sensitive money issues. Executives assume a human collections agent provides empathy, which they believe leads to better outcomes.
But then you look at the consumer side, and 52% of UK consumers stated they would be more likely to be open and honest with an AI tool.
Over half.
Over half of the people actually owing the money would prefer to deal with a machine.
It perfectly illustrates the blind spot in traditional arrears management.
I was trying to wrap my head around why someone would prefer a machine for something so stressful. And it reminds me of using a self-checkout at a supermarket when you're buying something personal.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. Maybe it's a health product, or maybe you are just buying like 3 tubs of ice cream at midnight.
Yeah.
When you remove the human cashier from the equation, you entirely remove the judgment and the embarrassment.
Yes.
You just scan your items and leave. How crucial is this gap between what businesses assume and what consumers actually prefer when it comes to designing these digital collection strategies?
It is arguably the most vital element of the entire digital transition. We really have to look at the psychology of debt collection. It is inherently stressful. When a human calls you to ask why you haven't paid a bill, your natural physiological response is fight or flight.
Your heart rate goes up immediately.
Exactly. There is shame, there is anxiety, and almost always there is avoidance. People will actively ignore a ringing phone because they cannot stomach the idea of admitting to a stranger that they just do not have the funds.
They just let the letters pile up on the kitchen counter, hoping the problem somehow disappears.
We've all been there or known someone who has. The human element, which executives think provides empathy, actually introduces friction.
Wow.
But an automated tool does not judge you. It doesn't sigh in frustration when you say you need more time. It doesn't use a subtle tone of disappointment. It creates a completely judgment-free zone.
So consumers feel safe, to be honest.
Yes, they are honest about their financial struggles earlier in the process because the emotional stakes are completely removed.
They will click a button that says, I need an extra 2 weeks on a digital portal much faster than they will say those actual words out loud to another person.
Exactly. And earlier honesty translates directly into faster resolution. If a customer admits on day 3 that they need a payment plan, you can restructure the debt and secure the cash flow.
But if they avoid you?
If they avoid your human agents for 60 days out of shame, you are spending time and resources chasing a ghost, and your cash flow suffers. The businesses that understand this behavioral shift are the ones capturing that £6 billion in savings. They are designing systems for the way consumers actually behave, not the way executives assume they behave.
So to pull all these threads together for you listening, the UK is definitely facing practical hurdles right now. There's a real lack of operational data skills, and there's totally valid uncertainty over navigating the compliance of European regulation.
Right, which totally explains why the adoption gap with Europe is widening.
But the advantages for proactive companies are undeniable. You are looking at a massive share of labor savings, the return of predictability and cash flow through early warning telemetry, and a really compelling consumer preference for the privacy that automated systems provide.
The cost of sitting on the fence is rising every single day. Every month, a company waits for perfect conditions. They are bleeding margin to competitors who are optimizing their cash velocity.
So for those of you listening, the core takeaway is that modernizing your collections approach is necessary before administrative pressure and slower cash flow become permanent weights on your operations. These tools are, they're no longer experimental tech projects. They are a fundamental part of a competitive payment cycle.
It requires a shift from a reactive posture waiting for a payment to fail to a proactive posture where you manage the relationship before the friction even occurs.
And I want to leave you with a final concept to ponder that builds on everything we've unpacked today. If consumers truly prefer admitting financial difficulties to non-judgmental machines, could we soon see these tools evolving into completely impartial financial mediators?
That's a fascinating thought.
Imagine a system that actively negotiates viable payment plans between businesses and struggling customers, balancing the company's margin requirements with the customer's real-time bank data, entirely removing human emotion, shame, and friction from the collections process altogether.